College Football Update with your host, Sean Spencer and Alex Loosemore.
And let's go right to it. You alluded to it before. There was no competition. You were on the show last week saying, bet, the 25 point, you're going to cover the spread, the whole nine. I'm going to tell you, it was not pretty to watch. And being on the other side, Alex, I mean, I know you had joy, but can you imagine me trying to be positive towards that? Like, Kat, it could get better.
See, I can because I had that exact same thing on Sunday. So, yeah, no, it's definitely tough being on that side. And like, I've played on both sides of that kind of game. It's not fun as a player, as a coach, as a fan. There's no joy whatsoever in that.
None. And after a while, it just, and I think of myself as a pretty hardcore fan. I'm going to watch to the last drop, unless it's my team where I lose my mind. But this one, it was just like, I was like, Kat, we got to turn it. Like, we can't keep watching this. Like, there's nothing positive. Because the thing Kat does is whenever the announcer is saying something that's just random, but it's positive towards the other team, she takes it out on the announcer. Oh, I hate them. They're just trying to love Michigan, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it's not that. No, they're not doing that, babe. This is, they're right. Like, you're getting killed. Like, they can't say anything else, babe. So
yeah, this is the point where it's what the announcers and broadcasters call blowout material. It's stuff that you're just trying to kill the dead air of a dead game. And you're just like, okay, what are we talking about? Like,
no signs or signals were harmed in that game. But you have to love Cat Hughes. Absolutely. Hey, great game. This is exactly what we expected. So, but look, let's stay right in the Big Ten. I mean, a game that you and I talked about kind of felt like it was going to go the other way, but I don't know. Penn State fell short. They lost 20-12 to Ohio State. What do you think of this one? Is this Penn State being exposed, or was just a better team won this game?
I think it was the inexperience of Penn State showed offensively. Yeah. You've got a sophomore quarterback that's making his first year as a full starter, 2 sophomore running backs, young offensive line. You got decent receivers, but not many of those guys have played the big time games like this. True. Going to the Horseshoe, that's a tough place to play.
Yeah.
And Ohio State's defense played lights out. They were phenomenal. JT Tuimoloau was an absolute game breaker. Looked phenomenal against that Penn State offense. I wasn't wowed by anything outside of Ohio State's defensive front. Like, to me, as a Michigan fan, I saw that game and was licking my chops. I was like, the way we're playing, we'll smoke both these teams.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see if that comes true when it's time to play them, especially when we go to Happy Valley. But that was a game. I wasn't going to go as far as Kate saying the battle of mid, but it was 2 teams that exposed a lot of weaknesses out of each other.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And look, for me at least, Ohio State answered the question that I asked prior to the game. Can their defense shut down the team? Can their defense show up? And they definitely did in that game. They stole the momentum, and they were able to shut down, you're right, a very inexperienced Penn State team. So it's going to be interesting going down the line. And again, when you play them, it's a different atmosphere, and you guys know each other very well. But if that defense plays that big in that game, I am looking forward to that one. Especially as somebody that has seen your offense just run roughshod over our makeshift defense.
I will say, Johnny's kind of caught me here. I'll say that team down south. You caught me. This is the most physical iteration of the team I've seen in a long time. But it's still not physical enough to match, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They've gotten a lot more physical up front. Mostly on the defensive side. The offensive line is still a massive weakness there that I feel like we'll absolutely take advantage of. But that defensive line is no joke. Those linebackers are playing tough. And it's going to bring a new dynamic to that game that I'm kind of excited for.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Scott, I don't know.
Don't even put up the next one, please.
Okay. Sorry. I just saw it. All right, Scott. God, you're done, buddy. You're done. Shout out to Mizzou, but no, you're done with that. Yo, let's move on. Another game we discussed on Saturday. Florida State comes out at 18 points, 18-point win over Duke. Riley Leonard played in this game, and he kept them in it for a good portion of it, but Florida State was able to stretch it out towards the end. I asked this question before the game. Should Riley Leonard play? He needed to play, and it kept him in the game because I think, to your point before, this would have been even uglier had he not played.
Yeah, the fact that somebody of that caliber, while not anywhere near 100%, which was pretty clear, him showing up made it only an 18-point difference. Had he not been in, this would have been ugly quick.
Yeah.
And I believe he got yanked partway through the game, did he not?
I think he went down either with an injury, but then he came back. But yeah, then they kind of pulled him out after that because, like you said, it was noticeable that he was hurting in the game. And he's given his best effort, but that speed of Florida State, man, if you're hobbled, they're gonna eat you up, man. It's like sharks in the water.
Yeah.
So Florida State, hey, again, they're ranked 4th. Another win. They continue to march down. Are they getting enough attention? I know we've hyped them up, but what do you think?
In the national spotlight, I don't think so. Yeah. Because it's been mostly Michigan and Georgia still, with Ohio State getting a lot of attention now. I think Florida State is probably the 3rd best team in the country right now. And that's me still throwing Washington above them. So okay. I feel like the top 3, realistically, in any order you want to put them, are Washington, Michigan, and Florida State. Georgia without Brock Bowers takes a fall. They're still probably 5, 6, somewhere in there. But Florida State is an elite program. And I think they should get more attention.
Absolutely. I mean, when you got Jordan Travis and Keon Coleman both on that Heisman projection list, I mean, you got to put some attention on them, man. I get it. You know, let's be honest. At the beginning of last year, we were talking about Norvell on the hot seat, but what he's been able to do that last year and then up until this point this year, I mean, shout out to him. 2 back-to-back years beating LSU. He's shown that he can play against top-tier teams. I know you have to win in the postseason, absolutely, but on the road that they're going right now, I got to say, man, FSU, man, they got to be one of the favorites to be in the top 4.
And I'll say right now, looking at this 4-team playoff, it is so interesting to kind of pick it out because there's a realistic chance you end with an undefeated Big Ten champion.
Yeah. With
an undefeated ACC champion. With an undefeated Big 12 champion. With an undefeated Pac-12 champion. Potentially an undefeated SEC champion. And if you don't have those undefeateds, it's a 1-loss SEC, 1-loss Big 10, 1-loss Big 12, 1-loss ACC, 1-loss Pac-12. Like, there's going to be so many different variables here. Like, if Georgia loses to Alabama, then how does that shift because Oklahoma beat Texas, or if Texas ends up beating Oklahoma and is the Big 12 champion, they have the win over Alabama. There's so many like intertwining roads here that I would love to just be a fly on the wall in those selection meetings.
Right. If only we had a 12-team tournament that could come and settle this on the field.
Might have been a good idea.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yo. I mean, hey, look, to your point, man, there's so much chaos, especially now at this time of the year with teams that have been undefeated. They're starting to fall. Teams that might have fallen early are starting to show up and rise. We look at, I'll go, Scott, you're in here, talk about Missouri. Missouri is one of those teams that fell early. We saw what happened when they lost to LSU. But I'm going to be honest, like we talked about throughout this year, they're doing it, and they're doing it, and it's not just Brady Cook. It's not just Luther Burden. You know what I mean? Yep. Go look at that running back. Look at these other weapons that these guys are having coming out here, and that defense is still playing tough. I mean, I honestly shout out to Scott. I know he's super excited, and if you can say, "Oh, Mizzou Golden Girls," but hey, that's actually no. That's from what's his name? Oh, here it is. Johnny asked best cheerleaders in college now, and he said the Mizzou Golden Girls. This guy. Yo, but I mean, honestly, Missouri going forward, obviously, we have to see them beat the likes of a Georgia for them to really garner that kind of attention. But look, I'm not counting them out. I'll say that.
No, not at all. There's about 4 teams that would kind of keep in the SEC race. And if Alabama slips up again, then I would add Ole Miss. And then Missouri and Georgia. Like, those are my kind of 4 teams I'm looking at in that conference right now. Realistically, it's more still Georgia, Bama, but those other 2 teams are creeping their way into that discussion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And look, we just talked about Bama, so let's go right over to that one. Bama playing number 11, Bama playing number 17, Tennessee. The tale of 2 halves. Can we say that? I mean,
absolutely we can. Yeah.
20-7, and it's looking like we're getting a repeat of last year. Then Bama does what Bama does. They show up. Saban went into the locker room and said, "You guys got a choice to make," and they made that choice. And they came out in that second half. Man, who is this more telling about? Is this more about how Alabama came back, or is this about how Tennessee choked it?
I would say it's more about Bama than Tennessee, mostly because, in my opinion, it was while Alabama scored most of their points in the second half, this was a team that shut down the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
They were like a vice grip on that Tennessee offense. Now, I made it clear how I feel about Joe Milton and that offense. I don't think they're very good, but that defense really showed up in the second half after playing terribly in that first half.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So, look, for Alabama, if they can keep this defense going consistently, then maybe we can start having that thought that they are the Alabama from the past, these Alabamas that we've talked about year after year after year. But listen, some even say that, this might be Saban's best job coaching, because, I mean, you really don't have that premier player. You have units that are good overall, but they're not, you don't have the Will Anderson, the Bryce Young. You don't have, you know what I mean? So, I mean, is this his best? I mean,
I would say yes. This is the worst quarterback he's had in a long time.
Yeah.
Probably since back to that 2015-ish year where, crazy enough, won a national championship that year. Go figure.
Right.
Running back room, I mean, we've seen the stable of running backs he's had continuously. Outside of Jason McClellan, there's not really anything here. Worst receiver group. Now, I mean, it's tough to keep that number of receivers they had in the past. By far the worst offensive line, one of the worst defenses, and they're 7-1.
Yeah.
I think this shows just how good of a football coach Saban is.
Yeah.
Everyone before it was like, he's a good coach, but a phenomenal recruiter. Now that the playing field's leveled out with that recruiting, it's showing clearly again how good of a coach this guy really is.
Right. So, hey, let's see what he can do going forward down the year. Let's keep going. Washington, number 5, Washington barely beats Arizona State 15-7. I mean, I get conference games are normally tougher, but dang, I mean, what?
Well, and the offense didn't score at all. It was 3 field goals and a pick 6 for Washington with a failed 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
Penix had 2 interceptions, damn near 50% completion, under 300 passing. Like, this was by far his worst game of the year.
Yeah.
Their leading rusher had 13 yards on one carry.
Oh my gosh.
Now, Polk, their third receiver, had 102 receiving yards, so he played well.
Right.
But I didn't see much of this game, so I don't know if it's props to ASU's defense or if Washington just really overlooked these guys and didn't show up. But that's a game you gotta dominate, especially with the CFP rankings coming a week from today.
Right. And honestly, I think this kind of begs that question. Washington, when you really think of perennial powers, Washington is not the name you put in there. They may be that second tier where you're like, if they have a great season and go undefeated, they could potentially go up there, but they're not the Ohio State. They're not Michigan. They're not Georgia and Alabama. They're not those type of teams. So it almost makes you wonder, Penix is getting a lot of attention. Odunze is getting attention. You got all these cameras coming now to Washington. Sometimes people, ain't ready. We talked about Penn State just not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
They hit the bright lights and it got a little shaky. So, are we seeing this from Washington, or is this just one of those fluke games which happens to everybody?
I think this is just one of those fluke games because if we're talking about all the cameras on you and you fall apart, that Oregon game would have been prime spot for that. And that was arguably their best game of the year. So I think this is just one where you had that magnificent game. You're kind of looking forward. Okay, we got USC. We got all these teams we still got to play. And you might have just wrote off Arizona State.
Yeah.
Who's coming in and being like, okay, this is the top dog. We're giving you everything we got. Similar to a Boston College, Florida State earlier this year. Like it's
right.
It's one of those games that you survive and you need to survive it, but you shouldn't have been in that position in the first place.
Exactly. Yo, moving along down the list, two of the top Big 12 teams. Got some close ones in this one. Houston almost got a win over Texas, held them close all the way. And Quinn Ewers went down in this game.
Yeah, he's got a grade 2 AC joint injury in his shoulder. So that's like a half to 3/4 tear in there. So it sounds like he's out 3 to 4 weeks.
Oof.
And no, it's not Arch Manning taking over.
No.
He's redshirting, it sounds like. I don't know when Ewers went down. This was another game I was watching other stuff, didn't really get to this one. But the offense, he threw 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, and then everything else is like rushing or field goals. So
right.
It might have been in that time, but I think they'll still be okay. Yeah. Now, this is going to be where we just talked about Washington surviving one game. Texas is probably going to have to survive 3 to 4 games.
Exactly. And not to mention how many games they've already survived. Let's remember that Wyoming took them to their limit. We've seen what happened
Alabama.
against Alabama, right? We see what happened against OU. They're in dogfights every single week. And you just wonder, especially now with Ewers out, you just wonder how long can they sustain the success.
Well, and that schedule is tough. So if it's 3 games, they host BYU, they host Kansas State, and then they go to TCU.
Ooh.
If you add in that 4th game, then they go to Iowa State. So those first 3 games are tough.
Yeah.
That 4th one, maybe not so much, but that is a tough 3-game stretch to lose your best player.
Right.
Because Ewers is a difference maker, and that is a tough pill to swallow for Texas.
Oh yeah, with Ewers, we're talking about potentially, CFP definitely in the conversation, maybe just outside of it, but without, I'm not giving them that. No, I haven't seen enough from the backups and all that stuff. So we'll see. Now on the flip side of that, the team that just beat them in the last Red River rivalry, OU, in the Dylan Gabriel revenge game. This thing went down to the wire. Missed 2-point conversion was the only difference in this ball game. OU escapes with a victory. Hey, UCF has had the last couple years under Kelsey Malzahn. They are a team to be reckoned with. We've seen them play, so this doesn't surprise me.
No, not in the slightest. And this, I mean, you look at it, UCF controlled most of this game.
Yeah.
Like they were up, 10-7, gave up a touchdown, scored a touchdown right back like 30 seconds later to take the lead again, went into halftime tied. 2 field goals in the third quarter, you're up 23-17 going into the fourth. They scored two touchdowns there. And then you being down that touchdown late in the game, drive down the field, being down 8, score that touchdown. If only they would have got the 2-point conversion, because this was one of those games that was so fun to watch. It was back and forth. And hats off to UCF, man. Like, John Rice Plumlee, one of his better games of the year. Completion percentage, just over 50, wasn't great. But 248 yards, 2 touchdowns. Our running back Harvey had 100 yards rushing. Yeah. This was a solid game across the board by UCF. And another one, good job to Oklahoma for surviving. That was the theme of the week for most of the country.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Not all of us, but
I was leaving that one alone.
Thank you. Look, speaking about surviving, we talked about Texas's schedule going forward. Oklahoma has to play at Kansas, at Oklahoma State, come home for West Virginia, then at BYU and home for TCU. I look at at least 3, if not 4 of those games to be very close and could be a tough fight for this OU team going down the stretch.
Absolutely. Yeah, like you look at it now, I know their records aren't exactly the same. Like we have a 4-3, a 5-2, a 6-1, another 5-2, and a 7-0 team that are all right there for the conference because of their actual conference records. So Oklahoma, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Texas, and Kansas State are all 3-1 or 4-0 in the conference.
Yep.
And we just talked about all those teams play either Texas or Oklahoma the rest of the way.
Oh, yeah.
Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Kansas State. They all have something to play for as well. Because that conference championship, at least that second spot, with that injury to Ewers is totally up for grabs. I cannot wait to see how this shakes out.
Yo, these conference races, they're heating up, man.
Yeah.
I'm hyped. I love this. I love this. Let's get it. Yo, a couple more of these ranked games. USC falls again, this time by a very stout Utah team, a Utah team without Cam Rising. What does this say? USC, they done?
Utah owns USC. Oh, yeah, they're done.
Yeah.
They're pretty much eliminated from the Pac-12 championship picture at this point. And I mean, you lost to Utah, you still got to play Oregon and Washington. They're going to end up with 3 conference losses, I think. I don't think they're winning either of those games. That defense, like we've said multiple times this year, is atrocious. And I've started to see a bunch of talk about this. I wouldn't be totally shocked if Caleb Williams pulls himself.
Ooh.
Locked into that first overall pick, essentially. Not really anything else to play for. I would look at that. He might be making a business decision here sooner than later.
I mean, we know he's already thinking about business decisions, talking to these daggone teams about being part owner and all that stuff. But
yeah,
wow, that's interesting. Now, let me ask you this, though. Since he has been talking about part owner and talking about that, wanting to have a stake in whatever team gets him, is there a chance if maybe it's Chicago Bears or Panthers or a Cardinals, one of these teams, is there a chance that maybe he says, you know what, I'm going to go play USC one more year? He's getting paid. We know he's getting something right now. So
yeah, but in my opinion, why would you?
Right.
Like we've seen what playing at USC is getting him.
Yeah.
Some some good games, a lot of flaws on that team. You're not going to be playing for anything, especially you're moving to the Big Ten next year, where Washington's joining you, where Oregon's joining you, where UCLA is joining you. Then you have Michigan, you have Ohio State, you have Penn State, like you have Wisconsin, Iowa. Like there's so much more depth in that conference once those 4 get added. And yeah, he can't even be a part owner, so that part's irrelevant. But if I'm Caleb Williams, I look at it and be like, why would I stay?
Right. And you wanna say, the rah to be with the team, and next year it's a 12-team tournament, so maybe they'll get a shot, but you just don't want that injury. You just don't want that. Oh, this is interesting. Does he transfer out of USC? Yeah, to the NFL. Like he's not.
Yeah.
I agree that I don't think he stays around. I mean, there's no reason. It's just no reason right now. Go to Alabama. It's not happening. What? What? I don't see that happening. Or OSU. We'll see. But he ain't staying. Look,
no, he's
one more game we're going to talk about. And it's our game. North Carolina. And you know what's funny? North Carolina, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, lost to Virginia 31-27. But I'm not gonna lie to you, Alex. And you might not believe me, but you know what's funny? I actually had a feeling we were gonna lose this game. And I don't know what it is, but some reason these rivalries, last year it was NC State.
Yeah.
This year it's Virginia. You know, some of these teams that it doesn't matter their record. And the reason why I'm saying this is because they came into this game 1-5, ladies and gentlemen. They were a dumpster fire for most of this season. It wasn't even watchable football. Like their offense was atrocious. And I'm not trying to dog on Tony Elliott, man. Shout out to him, but he's just really. He hasn't been able to create and build his team like he would have wanted to. On top of the fact that you got a Florida State, a Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, all these teams that you had to compete with year in and year out. Syracuse that gives teams like that trouble. So he's been dealing with a rough bit a couple years, especially there were some shootings over there as well. But for them to come out, this is almost like a Buster Douglas, Mike Tyson type thing. They just gave us that one good shot. And what does it say about us, man? I need somebody outside perspective.
I think, as weird as it sounds, I think it's a good thing for you guys because it's gonna reset everything.
Yeah,
Mac Brown's gonna get these guys focused. Be like, okay, that's your one. Like that's your freebie. It's go time because you look at it, FSU is still undefeated, but then you go in the conference standings here. Louisville, UNC, Duke, Virginia Tech all have one loss in the conference. It's a 4-team race for that last spot. Mind you play Duke. If Riley Leonard's out, you guys push them out. I think that's good. Yeah, you should. Yeah. And I think it's a really good game if he's in. But Louisville, I mean, they play Virginia Tech, who's 2-2 in the conference. They're right there as well. They play Duke this week. So that's essentially a conference championship eliminator.
Right.
And if I'm you guys, I'm hoping Duke wins.
Yeah. Because
that puts Louisville to 2 losses. You can take care of business in a couple weeks, put them at 2 losses, and then you're in the driver's seat to go play Florida State. And in some people's opinion, shock the world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you got Drake May. He's still playing well. I still have that confidence. But then I also do look at that schedule, and I know I agree with what you're saying. A lot of those we should get the W. But I look back at who we played last year and who we lost to. We lost to Georgia Tech. We lost to a Clemson. We lost to an NC State. Duke is no slouch. If they have Riley Leonard, like you said, 3 out of those 4 teams last year came and shocked us, punched us in the mouth. Like you said, I'm hoping Mac Brown gets these guys fired up and exactly what you were talking about. This is your one. You can't afford to make any more blemishes.
Yep.
This is it. And even more so, kind of like in the last team with USC, it's kind of like, look, you already see what this guy is projected as. You see what's happening. Drake is playing for his team right now. He's playing for his guys. He doesn't really need to do that much more to for the scouts to uncover anything else about him. They already know it's him and Caleb. So you want to, we're still in the hunt, definitely, but you want to make sure that it's clicked. We're all in. It's now or never. There is no, every week is a national championship, because if you lose next week, you're done. You lose the week after, you're done. Now
I will say, it couldn't have ended up better that you get one of those three opponents you listed, the Georgia Tech, Clemson, and Duke, that you get them this week. You guys played Georgia Tech this week. It couldn't have worked out better that you got them there. Clemson, we know what Clemson is. They're not good this year. Duke and NC State are the two tough ones. Now, Duke comes to you, which is a big plus.
Needed that.
You guys go on the road to NC State. I think that's arguably the toughest one left, just because it's on the road.
Yeah. So we are going to see. I actually got USC losing to Washington and Oregon, and maybe UCLA down the stretch.
UCLA is a very realistic one. They play physical. They play tough. They've got Steele and those guys that you can slow the game down, limit possessions for Caleb, and make him have to be perfect to beat you. All three teams can do this. And
if I'm not with the UCLA just put up 42 on Stanford, which shouldn't be saying much, but then we look at what Stanford did to Colorado just 2 weeks ago, where they were able to put up some numbers. So this is showing me, I like that we're seeing this from UCLA, especially going down the stretch.